Welcome to the Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television right now where you, the MSME entrepreneur, get center stage to ask all your questions and queries, no matter what industry or business you're in. Today, I'm in conversation with Vishal Kamat. He's the ED of Kamat Hotels. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, Vishal. It's always very exciting to speak with the second, third and fourth generation of companies, especially which have been in the business and which have, a name like the one that Kamat has in the hospitality space. Let me start by talking about really the history and, sort of the journey up to where you have been now.
It's a very interesting journey started by my great-grandfather. My father worked under him, learned a lot under him, because this is an interesting thing which is in my father's book also, that my father's father, my grandfather, never really gave him the kind of freedom or the opportunity or the flexibility to work in his own restaurant, because he was like, I want this is done. So they would go for holidays to Bangalore, and at that time my father, having the entrepreneurial bug in him, would work in my great grandfather's restaurants, and he would learn a lot from him. And I think that kind of mentoring which he got from his grandfather, I was also very lucky to get quite a few inputs from my grandfather when I worked in our few restaurants called Samrat and other places.
Is that very important to get that kind of grounding where you work across, different levels of any company that you're in?
It's very important, and I think the biggest thing, especially in our family, all of us have been made to work elsewhere before we started working in our own organization. There are a lot of challenges. It's not a cakewalk to work in your own organization because you have multiple kinds of people.
But I want to talk about the evolution of how the hotel space has changed, and let's talk about the last 5 to 10 years. At least the last 5 years has seen such a massive change because of technology. Before I come to technology, talk to me about what are some of the other disruptors that you've seen in the last few years.
See, today traditional hospitality, what my father would know it as, and what I halfway know it as, because by the time I would fully be able to be say about one generation, but today times are moving so fast that there's nothing like a generation left. I mean, even I supposedly am techno savvy, but within a year and a half or sometimes a year I find myself redundant, because things are moving so fast today, and there are so many alternate streams of business which don't have direct relevance on our business but have an influencing factor. So technology has been not just a disruptor, it's also been the great leveler. It's allowed people who today are having a small enterprise use a platform and compete with the big boys, if you want to call them that, at an equal level based on what they're offering, at the price they're offering, and being able to reach out to them in a unique manner. You
were saying something interesting earlier about, despite being in the generation that you're in, sometimes you feel that technology is moving a little too fast for you as well, for someone like you as well. For an MSME who doesn't maybe have the opportunity to tie up with, say, a channel partner, to tie up with a vendor, how do they go about using technology? What if they don't understand technology? Then what's the way out for them?
See, it's not correct to say SMEs or MSMEs don't understand technology, because today there are a lot of youngsters who are today a micro, small enterprise. They already know technology, and it's only a matter of time where they will use their abilities of today's learning. If we are going to talk about SMEs or MSMEs who are maybe from 15 years, 20 years back, yes, those people are going to have a challenge. The way to go forward in that case, in my opinion, is to be able to keep your ego aside of what you know and take the help of the newer generation today and build on that, because you have what they don't have: experience and a certain core values. The newer generation doesn't necessarily have certain of these things, and if you can make that match perfectly, then I think both the older generation, who's the SME guy who's not able to cope, he is going to benefit also, and the new guy benefits because he gets the old person's cultural values, he gets the know-how and many other positive things.
Okay, like you were saying, you've tied up with vendors in specific areas and domains. Is it important for a small company to necessarily tie up with such a vendor who will bring in the expertise?
Now I'll give you an example. There are some of the restaurateurs are there. They are there in that one location. People drive across, go eat, pack it, put it in a flight and take it back when they go abroad or whatever. Why? Because that person has said, this is what I want to do. I want to be known world over, that people come to me. And then there are others who say, I want to go to the world. So what do you want is more important than what anybody else wants for you. And if you feel that you want to be what you are, Or if you want to grow elsewhere, like I said, go world over, then that accordingly will make you take steps.
So you're saying it's either a consolidation or a growth argument that you have to resolve for yourself?
Yes, definitely. There are some people who don't want to expand, and why should they expand? It's not necessary to expand and to grow, because he may be content with what he's doing.
So then how does one in your industry identify a USP?
Today, when we talk about what is a brand and what is marketing, okay, that a brand is basically your recognition, and a marketing is basically how you're going to get people to talk about you. So whether you do an advertising campaign or whatever, so basically how you get people to talk about you. Now today, as an SME, if I want to be recognized and if I want people to talk about me, I should be good at what I do, and I should be very importantly consistent. Brands today who have grown, whether it's Kamats, whether it's others, we haven't grown because we are the best in our segment. That's not true. But we are the most consistent because we consistently give what our customer expects. We don't go above that, we don't go below that. We are consistent.
But how do you ensure that this branding strategy of friendly and eco-friendly is something that is being communicated to your external audience?
So we have multiple channels, and the best channel I can say is our repeat clientele. Our repeat clientele goes and gets us more. Today we have companies who are with us from beyond 97, since we started, when it was earlier as Kamat's Plaza, and when they've been staying with all our other hotels, and they've not left us. And the best part is sometimes we also make mistakes, but they're willing to overlook those mistakes because they allow us a chance to rectify, and then they come back.
Okay, you've gotten into restoring old historic places, forts, palaces, etc. How's that experience been?
It's very challenging actually, because the biggest challenge is not to make it a hotel. The biggest challenge is to make it an experience. And when you want to give something which is of experience, when you want to recreate the past, that is a big challenge. Because today's, like let's take the case of Fort Jadavgarh, which we restored, there was no toilet concept the way we know it today. There's no modern, plumbing and other things. So how are we to make sure that our guest today gets that experience without compromising on the modern amenities? So those were the kind of challenges which we faced while developing Fort Jadavgarh. And even today when you go there, a lot of emphasis is given on your experience. Like we have the opening and the closing ceremony of the door of the Maha Darwaza, which is the fort wall, and every morning and every evening there's an opening ceremony and closing ceremony. At the end of the ceremony they tell you about the history of the fort, they tell you about the history of the Wari. The Wari is a very, very important event that happens in Maharashtra, where the palki is taken across, and more than 8 to 10 lakh people come for that. It's a massive thing, and it starts at outside Pune at a place called Alandi and ends at Pandharpur. And the prince of this fort was responsible to take care of them and make sure they were secure. Now how do we reach out to the customer? Because he can go to any hotel and stay and experience the same thing, but here we give him an experience of the past. That is the challenge.
Speaking of the government then, and I want to talk about GST, that's the big talking point across industries. How's that affected life at Kamat Hotels?
So initially there is a lot of disruption in terms of our working. I think every company is kind of in the same spot where the technology linkages to what the government expects us to do. We've managed it to a great deal. There are minor things will still happen, because considering there are various platforms, our industry, hotel industry goes through a lot of additional issues because we deal with almost every department, and being in the food, stay, both. So we have departments which normal manufacturing or other industries don't have, like say a health department. For example, I know something, say health department is there, or say like we have a police, a fire, or this or that. So considering so many diverse things which are there, it has taken us time. But I think the outlook for the nation in the long run will be good. In the short run, I think when the government has been approached by us, by our associations, to make it even more lean and smart and easy, I think that's something which I hope the government will do fast.
I think your industry has faced a lot of scrutiny when it comes to GST, because it affects people personally. There was, talk about personal items like food, etc., which would have gotten much more expensive. I assume all of that has sort of died down.
No, nothing has got expensive because this tax has more or less been a mathematic replacement.
I think a lot of it was just the expectation that it would become.
When you don't know what's going to happen, fear takes over. And I think the government, while it has tried to quell such fears, I don't think it was fully able to reach out to the or to the common consumer. And that's where the responsibility also lies on people like us to be able to educate our consumers and explain them. And I think that's something our staff has done very well. We really didn't have any per se major issues while trying to explain. Like there was a lot of confusion. For just a brief example is it's 18% GST, but when the bill came there were like 2 nines. So you're like, ye do baar kyun mara hai? Why have you put it twice? Then explaining him, nahi sir, it's 18%, but as per law we have to show it separately. Now you know this because you've done a lot of chat shows, you've spoken to a lot of other people, but the common consumer who's just come within to you in the first odd week and otherwise, he's not
so how did you go about then educating your employees about this?
First we took classes for them, we took briefings for them, accordingly explained them to be able to, and then made them understand in a very layman way so that they can explain in a layman way. Nobody is a CA, and if he is, he's not going to ask you. And those who are explained in a nice polite fashion, they accept it.
Okay, let's talk demonetization as well. That was the other big move on the part of the government which had wide ramifications on the industry. Did you see a downtick of business, and if yes, have things started sort of normalizing now post that?
See, during demonetization, there was definitely a level of uncertainty which a lot of people, again, just like now, a lot of the companies even today are implementing, and hence maybe business is not as much of a focus. Same way at that time, you know, a company like ours, we used to have a lot of cash in hand for, you know, using for going here, going there, you know, expenses, whatever. Even those things got quite affected. But I think because just like in the case of GST, since everybody was involved in it, everybody was having the same pain, people were very understanding, our vendors were very supportive, other people, you know, I mean, I really appreciate at that time, I think what people understood that it was in the interest of the larger good. It was in the interest of the nation, and because of that a lot of people were very supportive of it, and we weathered it through. But if you ask me about cancellation of business and all that, that was hardly anything, that wasn't really much, because most of our clients, 99% of our clients are basically corporate or, you know, HNI type and things. So they are not the ones who are that much affected by it, because we already have digital payment gateways, we have credit card machines, we have payment gateways online, so we weren't really as much affected by it.
Vishal, let's take a very quick break on that note, but we'll continue talking really about the hospitality space here in India on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're talking about the hospitality industry with Kamat Group of Hotels. So now with the demonetization as well as GST through, and the larger impact on the economy, the larger positive impact on the economy, has funding to the hospitality space improved?
It's too early to say, but it will. Why will it not? I mean, not only to hospitality, to any business who is going to be focused on what, I mean, today we read about mergers happening at this stage. So I think it's nothing to do with taxation. It's more to do with what are your core fundamentals as a company. And since ours are strong, I don't think there's any problem.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I remember around 2015-16, correct me if I'm wrong, but the entire economy was facing a bit of a downturn, and the hotel and the hospitality industry specifically was facing even more of a challenge, given also that NPAs had hit 10-year highs. So people, you know, traveling, people lending to this industry had come down. Have things started improving?
So what we saw in 15-16 was actually much before that. It was in the year 13-14 where a lot of things were going wrong. That time elections were there was a lot of uncertainty. I think after the current government coming in, the first 2 years, they brought in a lot of stability in general. People were able to focus on their business and stop thinking about the uncertainties that would lie. And that's basically what we see in terms of the positive move upwards. And it will further continue is what I hope. it's not that in 15-16 we were down. We will always be down when the demand is not there. We are only a service provider. We cannot generate a demand. You want to celebrate your birthday, you want to celebrate a promotion, your company wants to launch an event, you want to do this television show with me, then you will invest, then you will come and spend, then you will use our programs, our
hotels and spaces.
And that is basically the challenge which we were facing. Companies didn't want to do their quarterly meets in hotels. They were like, okay, we'll do it in the office and all. It's cost cutting or corner cutting, but now they're back and they're spending well.
We started the show talking about you as a third generation entrepreneur at Kamat Hotels, and we do a lot of interviews with the second and third generation of business families. Being the third generation, has that been an opportunity? Has that been a challenge? And what have you learned from both?
Learnings are a lot. One of the learnings which I can share with you is basically like when I was younger. So we are basically a GSB, okay, which means Gaud Saraswat Brahmin, and we eat fish. There's a reason I mentioned this. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter. Not much relevant. But we eat fish like it's going out of style. Okay, and one day when I was very small, and I said, Papa, we eat non-veg, but all our restaurants are vegetarian. Why is that the case? So he's like, told me a story, which basically is one of the core ethos of our what makes us Kamats. When your grandfather used to open these restaurants, okay, that time there was no cold storage. How it used to be is that if there was someone who ordered non-veg, someone would go, there'd be a live chicken, you pluck it out, and then accordingly, he'd serve you a chicken dish. So it would take a long time, it was unhygienic, it wasn't the same. Plus, why did people come to restaurants, especially on the highway? Because, uncertain thing, roads were bad, small distances would take hours. So people would come to you and then they'd be like, nee, let's eat nice hot idli and have that coffee as compared to having anything else, because they didn't know about the journey, restroom, this, that. So a lot of social factors which determine what they ate, and hence all our restaurants used to have a nice simple South Indian menu, nice hot piping coffee, so that you are journey ready. As you have come tired, you are refreshed and you are journey ready. And that time he said, what you do at home, Vishal, should not determine what is in your business. Your business is your business. You are here for the guest. You are here to fulfill his needs. If you fulfill his needs, your home needs will be fulfilled. And that was a big learning to me, and something which I never forgot, which my father told me about my grandfather.
Okay. So would you be looking at making changes then to the format that you have at Kamat Hotels? What's the future looking like?
The future looks quite bright. We are focusing a lot on our existing properties before we look at acquiring anything new, because now is not the time to acquire. We are definitely, but while I say that, there are some opportunities in terms of some people who want to invest, and today we are in a very unique space. There are very few Indian hospitality chains like us, and that also with somebody as young as me, who's tied to the table. I have nowhere to go. I have to keep pushing forward. I have to keep growing, because that's what I want to do also. So there's very few people who have the ability also, who have the pedigree also, and both backed with a desire. And that's what I find myself in a very unique position, and I want to take full advantage of that for my family, for my chain, to take Orchid Hotel forwards. We have a property in Mumbai, which again another learning from my grandfather I share with you. He said, you should know how to take out the best value, not what you are doing. Today we already have a hotel in Andheri, which is a 4-star hotel, doing very well. But the time is ripe for the market to upgrade it and to make it into an Orchid, so you can get a value out of it. It's not about what you're doing, it's about how you can keep enhancing value.
Capitalize on that.
Capitalize on that.
Okay, you're saying, you are one of the very few Indian hotel chains. I want to talk about the Indian domestic traveler. How's the profile of the traveler changing?
It's changed a lot, and I am grateful that we have a very high, young, aspiring middle class, upper middle class and a lower upper middle class, who are all wanting to enjoy life because they've worked hard for it. They want to go out every weekend, every long weekend our resorts are full, and even if they don't want to go out of the city, another trend which I see is changing is that people take a holiday within the city itself. So a lot of people check into our city hotels because they're like, घर पे खाना नहीं बनाना है, housekeeping है, चलो यार, let's go, then let's just laze in the room, let's swim in the pool, get a massage. I don't want to get stuck in 4 hours of traffic. So this is also a changing trend. People are wanting to get away from the stressful Monday to Friday and take a break over the weekend, which was not very prevalent maybe say a long time back, but now that's a big change which I see in people.
Okay, a quick last word then. I do know that you put a few of your hotel chains and a few of your hotels on the block. Why was that? Do you expect to see more consolidation?
When we put it, it was quite some time back. We're definitely looking at certain opportunities. There are people who want to invest because they have the money, but they don't necessarily have the management personnel available or the desire to further that as a business. It's about like I said, value. The hotels are one of the best value propositions. They're like a diamond. I mean, the value is very distort. It's a value distortion proposition, and because of that, nothing generates better value for them than investing in a hotel. But now, if once you have the hotel, you need some good brand or you need some good person to operate that hotel.
What are the opportunities that exist for budget hotels in India right now? And what are you looking in that space? Are you interested in that space? What are you doing there?
More than budget, I'd call it the value for money segment. And I think that there is definitely a great scope, because most people who are traveling for a work or for basically a need. And when you travel for a need, you don't want to spend exorbitant. So definitely a scope for budget or value for money in that regard. But the key thing is that it's not about what you are making, it's what your market needs. If there is a person who has a value for money hotel, and if he can move up the chain, enhance his value because of, like I said before, branding and marketing, so a recognition and a repeat customer, and if he can add value to it, then he should move up slowly the ranks, because everyone aspires to grow, and he will in that regard.
Vishal, thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. That wraps up this special interview with Kamat Group of Hotels. If you're an MSME and you have anything that you would like to tell us, do remember you can write in on leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can tweet at me personally, in fact, at Sunanda_J, or on our Twitter handle, LOT_ET now. You can reach us on Facebook. That's our Facebook page for you. Or call us on that number you see on your screen. We promise to have all your questions answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.